So a couple of things about Cora while we wait. She's an international set designer and interior stylist. She's Italian-German, but she's been working between Milan, Paris, and New York since the last 10 years or more. Currently, she's in Germany in quarantine. So thank you for coming and to connect with us. And I think, I don't know if we want to wait for a couple more minutes or maybe we like start with her presentation. One quick thing, we have the Q&A panel. If you have questions for her, please write it there. After the presentation, we are gonna do 10 minutes Q&A. So we are gonna open that with her later.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. Thanks a lot for inviting me today. And thanks a lot for all the team of AIGA that gave me this opportunity to chat with you today. So let me know if you want me to wait for a bit more people to join us, or if should I start saying something about eventually what I do or this presentation.
I think at this point we can start, and then if there are more people coming, we are also recording this video. So if you miss the first few minutes, we are gonna send a recap email later with all the links and Cora's contact, so you guys can still go on our website and check it out later. Okay. I think also we are gonna send a link with the PDF of this presentation. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can look at that in the future or save on your computer.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Cora, to be with us, and I'll let you continue the conversation.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. Okay, yeah, so I will move forward with a little bit of information about what I wanted to talk about today. So I was thinking about design of harmony for a series of reasons. I had the chance to travel to Asia for a couple of months recently, when it was still a thing that we could do. And there are several things that I keep having in my mind and reading about it and sort of willing to go deeper, because I think there are some things in the Japanese culture that can really help us go through this time with a different approach. We are now forced to slow down, and we are sort of not used to it. We freak out a bit, but that there are so many very interesting things that this slowing down, going deeper, and create a space of peace and calm that can give us so much. For instance, I'm learning German in this very moment, in this free time, which is my fourth language. And I hope that this time will also make you grow in one way or the other. So in this specific theme that I wanted to discuss with you today, there is the appreciation of ephemeral beauty. That is something that we never have time to actually notice properly. Maybe a bit more in this period, since it's spring, and also during fall, when it's more of a dramatic change into nature. But for the Japanese culture is way deeper, and I just wanted to tell you a bit more about it and what we can do with these informations. So, but first of all, I have to say arigato to my friend Chaki Takashima and her family, as they were kind enough to write this lettering of harmony for me and for us, and you see it here. So a few words about what I do normally when I don't study German. So more or less, this is what my workplace look like. generally. So I am a set designer and stylist. So it means that I take care of the props and of the setting of catalogs, advertising, events, booths for trade show, press presentation for different kind of brands in different countries, mostly for furniture and design, but it can be many other things like fashion clients, food, editorials, and so on. So these are a few places where I had the chance to work. Okay, these are all exteriors, but there are enough beautiful interiors too. Here are a few examples. There are classical, modern, eccentric, unusual places. There is more on my website. You can totally check it out, and also in my Instagram and my other socials. Another examples in like classical places or other exteriors. So you will definitely imagine that this talk will be about amazing places, stunning houses, and I could have so easily done so because it's 10 years that I freelance and I do that quite a lot. But I figured that this will be the house where I want to bring you today. I'm sorry. I hope you will not be disappointed, but today is not a day for luxury. Today, I think we need to focus on a more humble design. There are more important things, more essential things we need to focus on. And this is the perfect place where we can start. And you will ask yourself, what is that? I prefer the other house. I'm sorry. But this house is so, so interesting. This house is actually a tea house. So what exactly is a tea ceremony, like a Japanese tea ceremony? So a Japanese tea ceremony is a very, very complex event. It's a moment that summarize somehow the Japanese sensitivity and aesthetics through the act of drinking tea. But that's so simple. Actually, it's like a creation of a ritual where a couple of people is together and they share a moment so perfect and so deep within themselves and with the others and with nature. It's like an homage to this very moment that will not last forever. Of course, there's a lot of Zen behind all this, of course, because actually it were Zen monks that were using tea first, because they used it for their stimulating effect in order to be able to meditate for hours. And then they introduced it from China to Japan, and afterwards it became very popular between samurais and other popular figure in feudal Japan. Yeah, so the origin of this is very, very Zen. And then it was eventually something prestigious. It was something for rich people. They used to collect very beautiful art and very, very beautiful objects, build a very like special room for that. But there are still many original elements into this that are so powerful and interesting also today. So why exactly this tea ceremony is after the monks period? So they can be organized to commemorate mostly something special that happens with nature. So for instance, cherry blossoming at the end of March, the autumn moon and the changes of the leaves and so on, then also other formal occasions. I had the chance to participate to a tea ceremony in Kyoto a few months ago, just for me. I was the only guest. And my while January formal tea ceremony lasts 4 hours. That's why, because before there is also a dinner. The tea ceremony will actually happen later. Few more information regarding this tea ceremony. So this event is so perfect actually that is supposed to work on all your senses. Your sight is involved, and this is what I'm gonna focus later, because I mean I'm a visual designer in the end. So the first thing that will happen, the guests will actually admire the objects in a specific area of the tea room, which is called Tokonoma. And they're generally flowers, and there is some wall art. I will tell you more about this later. Then they will admire the ceramic, the utensil, then the architecture of the house itself. Of course, there is the touch. There are a lot of natural raw material that we'll also see later when I will tell you a bit more about the Wabi-Sabi aesthetics. There is a smell because, prior arriving to the house, there's a garden, so there's the smell eventually of the garden, but also in the house, there's the smell of the sandalwood that was burned prior to the arrival of the guests. That's why there are so many rules about this, many rules. And so one of the rules is that it's inappropriate to wear perfume in order to not touch this perfect balance that has been created for the guests. The hearing also, tea ceremonies are mainly in silence. Guests are not talking, just formally and eventually later, but the idea is not to talk. The only sounds comes from the iron kettle or the garden outside. Another thing, actually, when you drink your tea, is the only moment where you as a guest, you need to make a noise in order to make understand the tea master that you are done with your tea. So you are supposed to sip kind of like which is weird for us. But anyway, taste, of course, is a very important sense that is involved, as you will taste a very bitter tea. Matcha will be on sugar, without sugar. And it will be served after some very sweet pastries, because they really want to emphasize the contrast. So that's me being silly in Japan. I mean, that's at the tea ceremony when I was like trying to do all the gesture that this person actually tried to teach me. It's a very complex art. You need years in order to be a tea master and to learn more of the tea ceremony. But that was super interesting, and that was now I will tell you later about the person that introduced me to this. You will see it in a picture. Yes, here you see a couple of the tools that are used for the ceremony. So back again to the house. You see actually in the drawing there's this scroll door. It's actually the little door you saw before. That's a garden. So actually when you arrive to the tea house, you have to pass through a rock garden that is generally, as you can see in the image, like designed in a certain way in order to mean something. So what happens exactly? So this little door that you saw, it's actually the entrance for the guests. So you have these very important guests that are coming from different ranks, like also very important samurai or political figure, and everyone has to actually bow and enter into this little hall, I would say, more than a door. This is very meaningful because it means that everyone is equal at this point. Everyone has to be humble and bow and enter and somehow born again. That's why they say that at the internal of the tea house, you sort of feel yourself like inside a womb. It's like rebirthing inside, and also you feel very safe. Far from everywhere is a space that is nothing. And also you feel very safe because if you imagine, if some of you is a samurai, you prefer that he leaves his huge sword outside, right? Actually, they couldn't enter with the sword because they couldn't. So yeah, here a few more information regarding the house itself. So you see, simplicity and tranquility are the pillars of Zen philosophy. So all this is applied to the house and to the tea ceremony itself. Here I wrote something about the garden. Once again, we are arriving to this point, but you will find references to the garden inside the house or eventually to nature. And yeah, also you will see again the size of this house is crazy small. It's like a 9 by 9 feet, which means 4 tatami and a half. There's nothing left improvised. Everything has a specific meaning and a rule. Also, the position of the kettle is never at the center. It is a little bit asymmetric because, I mean, you will see again for the Wabi-Sabi philosophy, perfection is not really a thing. And also materials are strictly natural and collected locally. So bamboo, wood, straws, stones. This is a little bit the room we are talking about. But now I wanted to focus on one part in particular, which is the Tokonoma. This is actually the lady that gave me the tea ceremony in Kyoto. It was actually very, very interesting. And what you see next to her, it's an example of Tokonoma. Actually, I'm thinking some of you are probably doing your own tea ceremony right now. It can be the right moment. So what exactly is this Tokonoma? So this Tokonoma is a niche that you can find either in a tea room, tea house, or also at the entrance of a typical Japanese house. What is this for? Actually, it's for display, it's for artistic appreciation, and it's the first thing that a guest will see when entering your place. Which kind of artistic appreciation? It's an homage to nature. So what is very important for Japanese in this sense is even when you are home, to always remember what is happening outside your door, what's happening in nature in this very specific moment. It's an homage to the guest, but is also like a memento that things are changing all the time to you also. This is so fascinating as a concept, not only for me, but also for instance, Frank Lloyd Wright. He was really impressed by Japanese architecture, and he translated the meaning of Tokonoma into the Western counterpart, which is the fireplace that he used in many of his projects. Really keeping this in mind, that this is like a focus point in the home. So a few more information regarding the Tokonoma. It's actually sort of a sacred space. very important and very, very minimal, as you can see, because it's a place where we are invited to stop for a minute because there's nothing, we're not overwhelmed. And it's a place that invites us to meditate and to think about emptiness and to think about change and to think about nature that is teaching us this all the time, even though we don't want to see it. Typically, in the Tokonoma, there was a scroll. Often it was like lettering, calligraphic work of art, or sometimes with references to nature. And then there is a flower arrangement, often Ikebana. Now I'm gonna talk about Wabi-Sabi and Ikebana a bit, which are some concepts that are strictly connected to the props, to the choice of the props for the Tokonoma. Okay, Wabi-Sabi is the discovery of beauty in imperfection, the acceptance of the natural cycle of growth and decay. These terms comes from poetry. It was the tea masters that adopted it, and is an homage to diversity, to uniqueness, to imperfection. All the ceramics that are used in the tea ceremony are slightly misshapen, a little rough. Everyone is different. They are glazed in an uneven way. Each one was chosen personally by the tea master for each guest in order to make him feel a specific feeling. And there is really a part of the ceremony where the guest is supposed to see the best part of the cup, admire the cup. So all this is very, very important. And again, talking about another prop, which is way more than a prop, flowers. In this case, Ikebana. I mean, you could study for years and years Ikebana. I just did a class, so I don't know much about it, but there are so many rules behind it. But it's very, very interesting and fascinating again. I think that this poem well summarizes the meaning of it. I think that no other art in the world is as pure an expression of the present moment as Ikebana. All the other art forms leave behind some sort of object or trace. The poet a poem, the sculptor a statue, the painter a painting, the composer his music. Artistic expressions that remain to testify that art is eternal. Ikebana instead leaves nothing behind. Flowers brief, life is brief, and even the most magnificent arrangement only expresses the experience of a moment. To fully value the fleeting beauty of flowers, this is the art of Ikebana, the art of discovering the peak of their splendor, which will not last till tomorrow. Yamada Muno. This is a very nice concept that really inspired me, and I think we should also try to take with us if we can. We always like what we can have and will stay, but actually there are also studies that say that we have hedonic adaptation, so it means that all the things that last will bore us at some point. Sorry to spoil that. So now is the time to do your homework, guys. A tough one. I was imagining for you to create your own Tokonoma. Of course, our culture is very different. Of course, our homes are completely different. We have nothing like it, and it's totally fine. I just mean that we could try to take some of these concepts in order to create a sort of little architecture in our house, like a place that is untouched and it's respected, that is dedicated to homaging nature and change. And also, I like you to imagine a story that connects these props. It's not just, okay, nice vase with flowers, nice picture, done. I mean, no. There are hundreds of years of philosophy behind this. So I will make you a nice example to make you understand a bit better. These rock gardens, for instance, this rock garden is designed in order to represent a river. So it means you are walking through the river, you arrive in the room, and in the room, these flowers are representing the wind. Like, let me go back. These flowers, these compositions represents the wind, these two. Then there is the wind. Okay, then maybe in the wall art, I can have fishes. So it means that there's a river that goes inside the house. You feel the wind and there are the fishes. I mean, this is what I mean by Tokonoma. This is amazing. And I think there are many things you can do with it. You can be curious, creative, and ready to change it many times, since flowers will not last a long time, as we know. So here are a few examples, ideas, randomly that I picked for you. So for your kakemono or kakejuku, which is the wall art, you could eventually paint a watercolor of the scene that you see from the window, or the lake you really like 1 hour from your place, but you cannot go right now. You can write wind with a beautiful lettering or in another language. If you want to know, in Italian, vento, en français, vent, auf Deutsch, Wind. Okay, that's an idea. You can print a picture of a sunset sky. And many ideas are also available for you. Flower arrangement, of course, no one of us can randomly do an Ikebana like that, no. You also need certain tools in order to make it happen, also to study a lot. This flower arrangement can be real flowers of the season from a shop or a garden, a few leaves that you found on your terrace or a park. It depends what you actually have access to in this very moment. You could also use things that actually don't really die soon, which in this specific case is a problem, but they can be stones or branches, pine cones, or whatever you liked from nature and you want to end. We don't need to be too strict. Of course, that's an interpretation. It's just a way to see another way of design that is far from us. It's just a way to look outside the box and eventually in this period learn something new, eventually just something interesting about another culture, or then be inspired in doing something else. Yeah, the whole world is full of magic things, patiently waiting for us, our senses to grow sharper. And to end this presentation, I will suggest you some books that I read about these subjects. Wabi-Sabi, it's an interesting book. Also this one on Ikebana, the Book of Tea will tell you exactly what a tea ceremony is about. And Praise of Shadows is really, it's a very beautiful book that really explain the aesthetic, Japanese aesthetic of Wabi-Sabi, plus some more articles, very interesting things that I found. Yeah, I think more or less this is all I wanted to tell you today. I hope you will have fun with your Tokonoma. I'm available if you want to send me some photos.
Thank you, Cora. This was really interesting. Maybe we should open the microphone.
Thank you.
So one thing for everyone, if you have a question for Cora, you can write them now in the Q&A. and then we are gonna call some of them. In the meantime, I have a question for you actually. So I see something behind you. Is that your, I see something in the background.
Okay.
I was like, is that your Tokonoma space that you realized it this morning for us?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I did my best. Yes. The best that I could do with what I found and was available to me. It will be the same for many of us. It doesn't need to be anything special or strict. I really liked all this information, but of course, it doesn't mean that we need to be super specific. Everyone can find his reasons for this. I just like that. And of course, these tulips will die in a few days, so I will have to figure something else out.
So we have a question from Lauren. She said, in Tokonoma, is there generally a balance or consistent proportion between flowers and greens, or between things like rocks and greens?
So yeah, there's a very strict balance in every Ikebana composition. So there are many rules. There are different kind of models. So the rules are within the composition of the flowers. Then rocks, etc., are not really part of the Tokonoma normally. Generally, it's just a vase with these flowers and a scroll with a specific lettering or images. We are being open on the subject, of course, and I'm also not Japanese or super expert. I think that it's interesting to bring this topic closer to us.
Okay, and next one. How do you use this Japanese principle in your set design and interior design work?
It's something that I've been thinking about since my last trip to Japan, which happened 2-3 months ago. So it's something that is really inspiring me lately, also because because of the things that are happening around us. There are so many hints that we hear about this all the time, trying to meditate, trying to be mindful of the moment, trying to stop and accept and cherish what you have. So every project that I have is very different. I try to be kind of minimal and clean, but for every client I really develop a different language. So I'm not always like minimal. It really depends. I really want to find a voice for every specific project, which has not to be my voice necessarily.
Thank you. I have another one for you. What size is a Tokonoma space usually? Is there meaning behind that? I said, what size is a Tokonoma space usually? And is there meaning behind that?
I cannot really respond with precision. I think it was 170 centimeter probably, and 30 centimeter depth. But I don't think it's so strict and always the same thing, because we are talking about something that changed from a religious thing, from a certain way to another, then it can be applied to a house. So over the years, it really changed from something like super sacred, super standard, and at the beginning, the tea houses were actually more raw. And then now are very, very simple, but not raw. They were before, but super curated into detail. And I'm sure that then when the Tokonoma becomes something that happens inside a house, is no longer a tea house. So I think it's not so strict anymore. There's so much an evolution around it.
One more question for you. You have traveled to many places around the world. Do you find the people's design tastes change a lot from country to country?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So what about you? Like what's, having traveled so much, do you go in waves? Like now you feel more in a Japanese mode because of this particular period we are living, or you are more in, generally talking, inspired by other culture? Is there any country that inspire you the most, or does change as well?
No, I mean, personally, I think that what happens is that there are elements that comes into my mind from different situation. It might be a movie or someone I meet or an exhibition or a country. There are so many things that makes me make my inspiration or my style. Of course, there are some elements that I might love about Belgian style or Japanese or many, many other things, but then it doesn't mean that I'm like a minimalist, super Japanese. No, it's not really like, I like clean images, but not too empty or without life at all. Like, it's a bit more complex, I guess.
Is there any style in a particular country that you like the most?
I don't know why I'm thinking about Belgium a lot. They have a great style. Yeah.
How does German space design compare to Italy? How does German space design compare to Italy? Because you said now you are quarantined in Germany, but usually you actually live between Italy, Paris, and New York. So now that you got the chance to actually be in Germany a little bit longer, how do you compare like the space design there with Italy? What's the difference? And do you like it more?
Yeah, but of course, we could say many things. I am in Munich right now, so eventually if I was in Berlin, it was another thing. Same thing with Italy. It's like there's a specific style that I really like in Germany. They're very minimal, but also they have their way to express coziness, hygge, let's say, which is of course more Nordic. It's very spontaneous, and for us it's very, very hard to replicate. And there are many like offices or bar that are really in the window, which is something that I saw a lot in Amsterdam too. You see really people living in what for us are shops. You see everything. There are no curtains. They're on the street, and there are many little offices here that still they look like shops. But there is this natural, casual, eventually with blankets of fur to put on benches, and then some flowers and some different ceramics or elements on the table, or kind of mismatched, but always like perfect in a way. In Berlin is like that too, a lot. It's kind of Nordic, this thing. And for Italians, it's very hard to do it. It's not at all our way. I don't know.
So I think if no one else has questions so far, we can close our Morning Brew episode here. And I want to say, everyone, we are going to continue the conversation on Slack. I just post the link again for everyone. If you have more questions, you can just go to that link, and Cora is going to be online for a bit to answer. Or you can pop your question. She's going to get back to you later. Again, we are also going to send a recap email with her information so you can connect with her. And I was really excited to have you here today because we were talking about like set design, and actually now we include the Japanese culture. The set design is such a unique niche inside the design field, and I hope you guys like it and is clear in your mind what actually set design is.
Yeah, I know that I focused on something really specific today, but I thought it was more interesting, as I mentioned in this moment, to focus on something deeper and more specific instead of just saying, isn't this an amazing attic? Don't you like this pool? No, you cannot go.
Well, at least I can say you have been an amazing speaker for us today. I say you have been an amazing speaker for us today.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you again, and thanks everyone.
Thank you. Fun, so much fun.
We are gonna see you next Thursday at 8 a.m. Denver time, and stay tuned for another exciting speakers coming soon.
Thank
Ciao,
you.
everyone.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone. Hey,